So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:09. So the first thing on the agenda will be an introduction. Welcome, everyone. New executive committee. This is very exciting. I look forward to working with all of you, except for Mr. Alfstead. It's just so funny. It's so easy. No, in all seriousness, this is very exciting. I think that we're going to do a lot of good stuff. I'm very excited about what we can do and will do moving forward. And I look forward to what I campaigned on, which is being drama-free in 23. We will actually move forward and fight the state, not each other. So I very much look forward to working with this new executive committee, and I know that we can do great things. Everyone here is incredibly principled, bright, and I am honored and privileged to be your chair. We will go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda, which will be public commentary. So if anyone wishes to give public commentary, we'll give 10 minutes for that. Does anyone not on the executive committee first say that wish to give public commentary on anything? Mr. Vimmers, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to propose a resolution, so I don't know if this is the time to do that.
Mr. Brown, would that be appropriate?
If he could suggest it, but you don't want to take action on it during public comment.
Could we do it during new business at the end? Would it be beneficial for us to hear his
You can
resolution?
hear it now, then people are going to be thinking about it.
Yeah, if you could give, so we will have, before we adjourn, we will have new business, and we can go ahead and take a motion up at that time.
Great,
So, Mr.
thank you.
Ernst, if you'd like to present your resolution now, that'd be great.
Thank you, and I gave a copy to Chris. It is Chris, right?
That's right.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
or Jason, we don't really know.
Right.
The jury's still out on that.
Even with my white privilege, I can't tell.
And they're sitting next to each other. You just can't make this shit up. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. We support the withdrawal of the U.S. from NATO. We oppose taxpayer funds being spent on the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Thank you for being succinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a brilliant resolution. I don't anticipate that that'll be very controversial amongst these, amongst our circles here. Any other public commentary at this time? Ms. Blansky, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you everyone for a great convention. I know I didn't stir any shit up, but I tried to work hard and I think this was great. So, into next year. No.
Go, please, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown has the floor.
I just wanted to thank everybody for the morning session at the DoubleTree going so smooth. It went
Yes.
exactly. There was a lot of pre-convention anxiety, and it worked out absolutely perfectly. It took 30 seconds, which is all it should be. So thank everybody.
Before I give the floor to Mr. Butts and then Starchild and then Mr. Butts, because we're doing public commentary, I will just say that Mr. Brown's an absolute rock star. He's just fantastic, and I really appreciate you putting up with us being us. So. We'll go Starchild and then Mr. Butts.
Since the chair mentioned Mr. Butts, I would like to respond briefly to something you posted on email. A couple weeks ago, there was, unfortunately, the San Francisco Libertarian Party has been fined by the state for missing FEC filings. Several years ago, when we had more local people involved in the party, I wasn't chair at that time, but I was involved, as I have been for many years. Some people decided, like, let's start a PAC so we can donate money to candidates and be more official and everything. And I opposed the idea. I said, you know, once we get on the radar, somebody's going to have to keep following through on this every year, every time a filing is due, and keep on top of the paperwork and everything. Or, you know, things fall through the cracks, you know, they're going to end up trying to charge us for stuff and so forth. I got fined before as a candidate myself, so I know this. And sadly, that's exactly what happened. You know, now they think we owe, I forget what it is, a couple $1,000s or something. Anyway, this message Matthew posted went out to the list, implying that I was somehow responsible for this, and I just wanted to set the record straight on that.
I apologize, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Well, let's not allow crosstalk for a minute. Let's allow Star Child to finish and then follow the contract.
The other thing I just wanted to say is I think it should be one of our mantras that we should have the kind of governance in our party and our organizations as libertarians that we want to see in real world government. And one of the things I want strongly from real world government is transparency. They keep so many secrets, you know, they're doing so much stuff. They want to spy on all of us, but they want to keep their secrets and not let the public know about it. So I think the new chair that is one issue. I think Adrian's been fairly good on transparency, and I hope we keep that going forward. That this body operates transparently, and really there should be a public discussion list that everybody not on the committee as well can engage in conversation, have a quote unquote seat at the table even if we're not voting. I think is really important. I urge people
Star
to...
Child, we're out of time for, so 2 minutes for public commentary. We'll go ahead and pass it to Mr. Butts.
I would like to finish it
Okay.
with the body's indulgence, but that's up to you all.
We'll go ahead and move on to Mr. Butts. So 2 minutes for public commentary. We have 10 minutes.
First,
So.
I want to apologize for that. It was more out of frustration with just frustration about how we don't seem to sometimes go anywhere, and I didn't know all the details. I'm sorry for saying anything without knowing stuff. And I wanted to ask with Alex if what committees are you interested in joining this year?
Any and all, but bylaws especially.
Okay.
And I have Robert's rules. I've been reading Robert's rules, so I would really like to be interested in bylaws. But any other committees, I would love to do.
Okay. That was awesome.
Over there.
Sarah Foster from Sacramento County. I'm sort of rejoining the party, literally. I don't know what I'm getting into, but there are two issues. No, actually three that I'd really like some help on. And I was asking about how do we do committees now, or how do we do it? The first would be Julian Assange. I think we should be doing a great deal to get him out of jail. It's ridiculous. It's been going on. The second issue, well, that was one. Anyway, that was the main one that I could think of. Oh God, am I having senior moments already?
No, it's been a long weekend now.
Pardon?
It's been a long weekend now.
It has been a long weekend, but there was a couple of other ones that I thought were very, but I'll remember if I could bring them back later, would that be okay?
You could probably answer her question.
Sure, we can do
Yeah,
this.
please. But it's in that, I need to know more about how you work your committee system.
Absolutely, and I can go into that in just a minute.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is there any additional public commentary at this time? Outside of someone who hasn't spoken? Mr. Bird?
I have submitted also a proposed resolution condemning the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office for its refusal to pursue criminal charges against Officer Sam Muncie of the Modesto Police Department in the homicide of Paul Chavez Jr. It is a dereliction of duty and an affront to justice, and I hope you can consider it.
So we're at time for public commentary, so I'll just say a few things before we move on.
Move to extend? Anyone at the table?
Well,
No,
that would
it's gonna
be
move to extend.
up to the executive committee. Is there a motion to extend time on public commentary?
I'll move to extend time for 2 minutes to...
Mr. Minnelli has moved to extend time for 2 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Butts. Is there debate? Hearing none, is there any objection to the extension of time for 2 minutes to allow Star Child to speak? Hearing none, Star Child, 2 minutes.
The other thing I just wanted to mention is, you know, I know that there's been caucus organizing and caucus factionalism, and I do hope that we as a party can move beyond that. I hope everyone here really wants to see a free world set free in our lifetime, as our national platform states, and that is really what brings us all together, and that we can keep our minds on that and focus on that, and operate, as we want to see government operate, and hopefully maybe less backroom dealings and voting in lockstep, and people really thinking individually and being willing to stand up and question things and operate transparently, and hopefully we can all get along going forward. I'm Chair of San Francisco. I'm always happy to host people who are coming from out of town. If you want to come to any of our meetings, second Saturday each month, 3 to 5 p.m., everybody's welcome, and look forward to hopefully working with all of you moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will just say that before we move on to the next item of business, which will be the official roll call.
Sarah had her hand up too, and maybe she had remembered what she was going to say.
I remember what the other issue was, sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Foster, really quickly.
Have a committee.
Ms. Foster, really quickly. Is there any objection to hearing from Sarah Foster?
Better not.
Let the record show that Ms. Foster threatened assault. Let the record show that I am afraid. I'm afraid to find out, and I will let her
Well, I
speak.
just think that we should be doing something about top two. I know it would be a big deal, but we've got to get our back on the part. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. I know it just costs money, there's petitions, but we've got to take the lead in it, and I think we will get people to join us. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. Thank you. So I will just say to the new executive committee, before we go into a formal roll call and then go into the one item of business or new business, I guess 2 items of business. I will say congratulations to you all for winning your respective seats. I'm very excited to work with everyone that is here, and I think that we can do a lot of good. I will ask that all of you understand the position that you're in as far as professionalism. I want to be very clear about my expectations for you as executive committee members moving forward, and that's that you attend. We will have Zoom meetings. We will have in-person meetings that were already dictated by the bylaws, but we will have Zoom meetings more likely, or more often than not, at least once a month, that will be called by the chair. There will be business to be done. We will operate in the way that the LNC currently operates, because it's kind of absurd to think that we can get everything that we need to get done once every 3 months. Mr. Regier, Mr. Edgar, everyone that has been very intimately involved with certain aspects of the party knows that that's just not a productive way to run the organization. So when we do the in-person meetings, I will ask everyone to understand what it means to be professional. So I will always wear a suit when it comes to in-person meetings. I would ask that all members of this executive committee dress appropriately, business casual at the very least when it comes to meetings. We are not taken seriously for a reason, and that needs to stop. We cannot be a force that has any sort of actual influence with Republicans or Democrats if we don't actually act the part. And everyone here is dressed very well, and I would just ask that you continue that moving forward. No shirts, no t-shirts, no shorts, not Mr. Lebo was very excited, and I wanted to really just put that to it. So no shorts, obviously shoes. Just be professional. This isn't something that has to be dictated. Just be quote-unquote normal moving forward. We have the most brilliant political philosophy known to man, and it's really hard to pitch that to people that are expecting a certain level of professionalism that we're not willing to deliver, or I will say not willing to deliver, not can't, we can, not willing to. So we need to be better. And that's the number one gripe that we have. So I will ask that of all executive committee members moving forward. Mr. Lima.
For the December meeting, can we still wear a Christmas sweater?
If I approve it.
Okay.
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, we can have fun about certain things, but just let's let's be adults about certain things that we do. And I know that you're doing this facetiously, but let's just actually be adults when we do business. And we are the third largest political organization in the state. We need to act like it.
If I may add on to your comments about professional appearances, there are so many who don't know about the Libertarian Party, and if they come across us, it's like a job interview. First appearances will give an impression. If we are dressed professional, if we look like we mean serious business, then we are more likely to be taken seriously and not be casually dismissed, like somebody showing up to a job interview in tank top, shorts and bare feet.
Correct.
So we have to project. We do have to, in a sense, project professionalism and sell ourselves to those who do not know us.
Correct. And no offense to Mr. Brown, but I'm not the biggest fan of Ronar when it comes to a lot of stuff. We need to be productive, and sometimes Ronar is counterproductive to those measures against no offense. But that being said, it is to keep order. And we need to understand that when it comes to certain things, crosstalk will not be allowed. We will be professional when we do things. Decorum will be enforced. I know that a lot of us are friends, that we understand how, we get along outside of this body, but sometimes professionalism falls to the floor when we have some sort of familiarity, and that needs to be very clear that that's not how this is going to operate. So we will be professional. We will address someone as the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, the treasurer, Mr. Lima, Ms. Lepacek, that kind of stuff, because we don't want to get to a point of conformity where we just think that it's like okay to shoot the shit and it's going to be fun. We want to be a professional organization. This is how we attract people, to Ms. Stump's point from earlier. This is how we're going to grow the party. And we have to be a serious organization. Everyone here, I'm very excited to work with, because you're all professional people. We have such a great, I'm very excited to work with this executive committee. I can't stress that enough. And this is a very pivotal time for the party. And I'm very excited to work with all of you. That being said, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Well, actually, before we do that, are there any questions, comments, or concerns regarding anything that I've said? From the executive committee. Well, actually, I will say our LNC rep, Miss Carrie Eiler, is here. I will give her the floor, assuming that there are no objections. Miss Eiler, you have the floor.
I would just like to speak on that topic because I know that libertarians can kind of be polarized on that issue. There's some people who really dislike their respectability politics. I don't like it either. But I'll tell you what, I love our philosophy, and I know that I have to adorn it if I'm going to share it successfully with others. So I have about 30 years in marketing, and it's a marketing thing. I just want to make it attractive to others, and if they're not distracted by me, or embarrassed of me, or not wanting to associate with me, then I have a better chance at getting what I really want to get across, which is the philosophy.
Thank you, Ms. Eiler. Mr. Vice Chair.
I'd like to also suggest, I don't know if this is later on, but that we also follow those rules of decorum in our emails with each other. I think a lot of times our email communication has been very unprofessional and doing things that wouldn't be allowed in a live meeting, casting aspersions on other people's motives, name calling, all that. I mean, we don't need to rehash all that, but I would just like to suggest that we carry on that decorum in our email exchanges as well as in person and on Zoom.
I agree. I thank the Vice Chair for making that point. Given that Star Child is not part of the executive committee, is there any objection for a max 2 minute point from Star Child, the executive committee? Is there any objection? Hearing none, Star Child, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. A couple things. I would like to mention that Vermin Supreme, as I'm sure you all probably know who he is, he probably has a much larger social media following and public visibility than anybody else in this room, including myself. Some of what Adrian said, I think, may have been 100 years ago, perhaps more true. today, I don't think the traditional rules of how people appear and dress are in any way detrimental to our outreach. I think it actually helps our outreach. I think there's a lot of people out there that would be more comfortable engaging with someone like, dressed like myself or Vermin Supreme or otherwise unusual, even Elizabeth with her cool hat, than, somebody just in a sort of boring business attire. I don't say anyone should, feel hesitant to wear business attire if that's what you're comfortable in, but it's a much broader spectrum than that, and it's about freedom. I think we don't want to undermine freedom in our comportment, in our behavior, even if our message is pro-freedom. If we don't look like we're pro-freedom, if we're trying to micromanage, police what people wear and all this kind of stuff, that doesn't come across to the public as pro-freedom. So I would urge you all to think about that.
Thank you, Sarchel, for your commentary. And any member of the executive committee is welcome to bring that up, but I do think that just based on what I'm seeing here today, that professionalism is key and no one is turned off by professionalism. Moving forward, Mr. Lima.
What's on the agenda, just out of curiosity?
So it will be Operations Committee appointments, the appointment for the first quarterly executive meeting, and then new business, then adjournment. So moving forward, we will move on to the next item of the agenda, which will be the appointment of the Operations Committee. Traditionally, this is the officers and one other person. I will have the secretary read the operating procedures manual. I'm sorry, that's correct. If the secretary could please do the roll call for the executive committee before we move forward with anything that requires actual business.
Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Malagon.
Present.
Mr. Alstad. Present. Mr. Edgar, present. Mr. Regier. Present. Ms. Stump.
Present.
Mr. Butts.
Present.
Mr. Hammond.
Present.
Mr. Alvarez.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Present.
Ms. Hallisey.
Present.
Is that right? Is it Hallisey?
Allison.
Mr. Lepacek.
Present.
Mr. Lima.
Present.
Mr. Minnelletti.
Here.
Mr. Nichols.
Here.
Mr. Strachan.
Present.
Mr. Gorsh.
Present.
And Mr. Jimenez.
Present.
And the roll is complete.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So we'll move on to the Operations Committee appointments. That is done by this executive committee. I will have the secretary, if he has the OPM pulled up, just read the description of the OPM before I make a motion for the members of that committee.
Sure, Mr. Chair, this is bylaw 13, section 1. The Operations Committee shall consist of the chair and 4 other state central committee members chosen by the executive committee. Section 2, the Operations Committee shall have the powers of the executive committee between meetings of the executive committee, except for the following. A, establishing or modifying the party budget, except that the Operations Committee shall have a budgeted discretionary amount of $10,000 per quarter. These 4 members shall approve any expenditure over $2,000. B, creating, modifying, or repealing standing resolutions. C, incurring any non-budget expense or debt. D, suspending or censuring any member of the state or county central committees.
Could the secretary speak up a little louder? It's a little hard to hear in the back.
And E is overturning any executive committee action. The Operations Committee may, by unanimous vote, approve any other action that would require a vote of the executive committee. And finally, section 3, the Operations Committee may, by unanimous vote, fill any vacant party officer or Operations Committee position on an interim basis until a meeting of the executive committee is held.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Secretary. So that being said, traditionally speaking, it is generally the officers and one other member that is part of the Operations Committee. So I will move that the chair is already a part of this committee. I will move that Mr. Alstead, Mr. Edgar, Mr. Regier, and Ms. Stump be a part of the Operations Committee moving forward. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lima. Is there a discussion on this motion? Hearing none, we will go to a vote. If the secretary will please call the roll.
Mr. Chair, so you said Mr. Alstad, Mr. Regier, Ms. Stump.
Oh, you, I'm sorry. So it was Mr. Alstead, Mr. Edgar, Mr. Regier. I know you guys are the same person, but That is never gonna get old until it's done. Mr. McGear's having a ball, so it's gonna be fine.
So we're now voting on the appointment as a slate to the Operations Committee of Mr. Alves, Mr. Edgar, Mr. McGear, and Ms. Stump. We'll start with Mr. Alvstead. I will vote yes. Mr. McGear?
Yes.
Ms. Stump?
Yes.
Mr. Butts?
Aye.
Mr. Ham?
Aye.
Mr. Alvarez?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Hellesy?
Aye.
Ms. Lepacek?
Yes.
Mr. Lima?
Yes.
Mr. Minnelli?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Mr. Estrada?
Aye.
Unanimous, baby.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 14-0.
The chair will vote aye on this to make it unanimous.
Unanimous, baby.
Look at that, already making strides. First meeting in. Fantastic. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda. It will be the next executive, or I'm sorry, the first quarterly meeting for the executive committee, which is in person, as most of you know. My suggestion is that it be in the south. My understanding is that there is no specific location that is going to be considered at this time. I would suggest the new Southern Area Coordinator and the new Vice Chair to perhaps look at a place in the south within the next few days. I think that it is within reason to, we don't have to make a formal motion now. We would have to actually approve the place. I would like it to be the weekend of the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So usually our meetings are on Saturdays. It would be the 11th, March 11th. Would it be, there would be no motion that would be made at this time. We would have to meet, given the bylaws change, over a Zoom call to just do this one motion. Is there any objection? There's no formal motion. I'm just trying to hold the room here. Is there any objection to doing it on the 11th, which would be March 11th? It would be a Saturday.
Zoom call, right?
No, this would be for the in-person meeting. We would still have to.
I'm traveling out of state that week, but I would be more than willing to attend over Zoom if it provided an option.
Okay. Oh, so just to be clear to everyone, so per our bylaws now, we have to have 4 quarterly executive committee meetings. So once a quarter, those are in person, those are non-negotiable. And trust me, I've tried. So they are non-negotiable. We would have to have a meeting to actually solidify the date and solidify the venue for this meeting. It doesn't have to be the 10th. I am suggesting the 10th based on just stuff that I know, my calendar, other people's calendars. So I'm open to discussion. We'll go Mr. Ham and then Mr. Lima.
Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ham, Mr. Lima, and then Ms. Ham.
Does any member of this executive committee have a problem with the weekend of March 25th?
Yes.
You see the problem is?
Yeah, I have a problem.
Okay.
So we'll go with Mr. Lima for right now.
For flights, it's like,
What do you have?
2 weeks away. Maybe we can push back 10 more weeks.
So I just want to be clear to everybody, before we don't have to do this now. So we can have a Zoom meeting. So as the chair, I can call a Zoom meeting tomorrow. All right, can I call it now? Can do it 7 days from now? Okay, so I could call a meeting now for 7 days from now via Zoom, where at some point people would have proposals. So I want to be very clear. Traditionally, we change regional areas. So we have the north, the central, and the south. We don't have to do it in the south. I just think it would behoove us to do it in the south, since we haven't had one, because I believe Orange County, if the now vice chair will indulge. So I don't have any sort of stake in this game. I will go wherever the majority would want to go or do it. It seems like it would be the south. So we can do this. If everyone can do a bit of research, we can call a meeting right now. So I can call a meeting right now for 7 days from now, where we would hop on a Zoom call and there will be proposals for whatever area and whatever time and date or whatever. I'm not married to this specific date. I'm not married to this specific time. I'm leaving it to the majority. I'm just throwing that out there.
You do have the authority to call the meeting on the road in person.
I
can't hear you, Richard.
Just kidding.
You may not want to go there, but you do that.
Richard, so just to be clear, Mr. Brown just said that I am quite literally the emperor of everything. I want the record to show. I'm just kidding. Mr. Butts.
I have 2 family obligations in March. The 31st is mine and my girlfriend's anniversary, 10 years, and her birthday is on the 12th Sunday. So the 18th and the 19th that weekend, that would be best for me.
So let's do this. Everyone come up with the time. So all we need is a majority. Like, I do understand that this is, it's weird. The first meeting is always the worst one because it happens usually the month after. I know that we just passed that bylaw that, two meetings in a row, whatever. No one's feet are going to be held to the fire over this. So I just want to be very clear. This does happen right off the bat, and it's very weird and whatever. So would it be in order for me to call a meeting 7 days from now to discuss just this one thing? Okay, so I'm going to move that we have an official motion. I guess it would be
26th.
Let me just double check. The 26th at noon, a meeting. So this would be via Zoom, where proposals would be entertained for the in-person meeting, wherever that may be for the first quarter. Before I make the motion, Mr. Lima, then Mr. Minnelli.
Well, what is the latest we can have the first quarter meeting? Just out of curiosity.
There's no set time, correct?
There's no requirement to even have one. First quarter would be
Ideal, right?
for 3 months from now. At the end of the 3 months from now would be,
By the end of March, preferably.
well, we're in January, no, it would be to the end of April. I mean, we're in February. It'd be by the end of May, it's still within 1 quarter.
I will say, just before we do this, that there is an LNC meeting on March 11th. If that makes a difference to anybody, just throwing that out there. First, Mr. Minnelli, then Ms. Snow.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that we get like you already did, get the Zoom meeting set before we figure out the date for the in-person meeting. I would ask if we're gonna do it a week from today, that it be a little before noon, maybe like 11 a.m. or 10 a.m. if that works for people. And that's pretty much
I apologize, I'm going to be available on the 26th.
Mr. Revere is fired. Or Mr. Edgar, I'm still trying to given the proviso that was given, I'm sorry, not the proviso, the bylaw change for meetings that are called that passed, would it be in order for us to do 6 days? Would that be okay?
The details of that.
It was just that if it's unanimous, if everyone agrees, so the TLDR, that everyone agrees that we could do it on Saturday, for instance, that would be okay. I'll let Ms. Stump speak first. I was just asking the parliamentarian first, and then we'll go into that, but Ms. Stump.
If I would point out, so that way we could avoid booking during Easter travel. Easter is April 9th, so I do not recommend any meetings the weekend before Easter, Easter weekend, or weekend after, because travel's going to be crazy because everybody's doing the spring break thing now.
Fair enough.
I prefer the Friday before we're all doing this. I can do Saturday. No way.
Can everyone do Thursday of this week? Thursday. Anytime. Thursday. What about Wednesday?
I can do Wednesday.
Wednesday for a Zoom call to determine the time and place of the first quarterly meeting. Can we do Wednesday?
I can do Wednesday.
Wednesday at 7 p.m. Is there any objection to Wednesday at 7 p.m.? I'm actually asking.
I mean, I will make it work, I just won't be.
So just to be clear, just to be very clear, what I'm suggesting is that we have a meeting on Wednesday at 7 p.m., at which point I will assume that someone from the South will have a time and date and an understanding where we're gonna have our first quarterly in-person meeting. This will be the only motion on the table, is to accept this quarterly meeting. So it'll be Wednesday at 7. It doesn't have, I threw 7 out there, it doesn't matter, but like if everyone's available at 7, we could do that. But before there's any sort of anything given, Mr. Miller.
So this Wednesday, the 22nd?
Correct.
Okay, so first I wouldn't be able to attend, which I think everyone could do this without me, and I'm okay with that. The other thing is that I think the provision that was adopted with the 7 days was conditional upon 100% attendance and everyone agreeing to that. So that's the only alarm I'm raising, so.
Well, yeah.
If the secretary could read the
Yeah,
language.
that's off my memory too, so.
If everyone would just be silent while the secretary would read the language for the new bylaws adoption.
Now bylaw 12, section.
That was the floor amendment, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
It's not in.
It says the executive committee may also transact business by telephone conference or other electronic communication where the members can meet in real time. In such meetings, the normal rules of the committee apply as to quorums and voting. At least 7 days notice is required if business is to be transacted in such fashion, unless, this is a new section, unless all members of the executive committee attend the meeting and each expressly waive such notice at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, so it seems, if I'm understanding, Mr. Minoletti would have to be at that meeting in order for it. An alternate would not suffice, is that correct?
At least briefly, enough to say I'm okay with the meeting.
Mr. Austin?
Maybe I misunderstood on the floor. I thought it was, everyone had to either attend or give their consent for people to have the meeting in their absence. I didn't get the impression that.
It says all members of the executive committee have to attend the meeting and each expressly waive such notice.
That's what I'm probably saying.
But, I mean, okay, attending the meeting would seem to be an implicit waiver. I don't see why you would.
Well, it's not, it seems like it would be, but it's really not. You can't waive any notice requirement. That's what this bylaw amendment lets you do, lets you waive the notice.
Yes.
We'll go Mr. Ham, then Mr. Butts. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ham, then Mr. Butts.
I was just gonna say, it would be possible, right? Could we do like Sunday morning, like first thing in the AM, like go to church?
Mr. Leon, hold on. What do you consider first thing in the morning?
I mean, as early as y'all want. Like I can do.
On Sunday the 26th, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I would be gone Saturday night through Sunday morning. It was completely out of pocket. All day Sunday was out of pocket. I'm sorry.
So we have to just have this done in April, right?
Well, so if I'm understanding Mr. Brown correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is no set schedule for the first quarterly meeting. We just have to schedule it at some point in time. So my recommendation would be that, so if we can meet on Zoom on maybe February the 27th, call a meeting on the 27th, we do it at 7 p.m., and that would be the only item on the agenda. And then by that time, I would expect somebody, and I want to make it super clear, I have no preference. It should be in the South, just based on tradition. But it doesn't have to be in the South. But I will entertain, I quite literally do not have any sort of preference for this. So is everyone okay with the 27th at 7 p.m. for a Zoom call to determine, is there anyone that objects to the 27th at 7 p.m. for a Zoom call? Brilliant. So let's do that. So we will decide the first quarterly executive committee in-person meeting on the 27th of February at 7 p.m.
Let me make a slight correction.
Sure.
When we were discussing the quarterly, and I said it would be through May, I was referring to quarterly from today. But if you speak of the calendar quarterly meetings, it would be March.
So we have to have one before March.
For the end of March, before March.
Yes, but theoretically.
But theoretically.
If you don't do it, if you wait, happens, you just wait.
Okay, so everyone understands the assignment? If you're in the south, it should be there. You should have preference to choose your areas respectively. So if you're in the south and you're on the executive committee, so that would be Mr. Alstead, Mr. Ham, Mr. McGear, Mr. Edgar. If you have any sort of preference, Mr. Strachan. So if you have any sort of, well, technically it's central, but Ventura, let's be real. So if you have any sort of preference, Mr. Alvarez. So if you have any sort of preference, that's fine. Coordinate offline and be ready to make a motion. That will be the only motion on the table on the 27th. That's all we're discussing on the 27th.
For location, correct?
For location, time, date of the first executive committee.
We'll be discussing date that day.
Correct.
Okay.
So everything will be done that day. So
Okay.
everyone's good. If I understand it, on the 27th, 7 p.m., we're having a meeting to discuss just the location of the first date, time, and place of the first executive committee meeting. We're good? All right, brilliant. Excellent. So we'll move to the last item on the agenda before adjournment, which would be new business. Is there any item for new business moving forward? So Mr. Ham and Mr. Lima.
I would like to make a motion to delete the party business Facebook page for California LP. Over the past year, I've served on the communications committee, and this page is, instead of kind of being a place to update party members, it has been a source of division and vitriol, and just, just really nasty, like a lot of nastiness. An inordinate amount of time was spent policing this and trying to upkeep this to the point where our comms committee could not focus on actually doing communications type things like writing op-eds, writing, like speeches helping the party communicate. And instead we had to spend a lot of, human capital on just, dealing with people's gripes on social media. So I think personally, as somebody who is, at least today still on the comms committee, I don't think it's the best way to put out party business. I think it holds us back as a party, and I would like to make a motion that we delete this Facebook page.
So Mr. Ham has moved to delete the Facebook party business page, as I understand it. Is there a second for this motion? So Mr. Butts has seconded this motion. Is there further discussion on this item? Ms. Stump?
I would like to, if this is approved, freeze the internal business page from any further posts, allow the historical committee to archive any information they want to from the page if they seek if there's any historical relevance for recording any of it, but prevent any further, and then but before we freeze the page, create a new internal business group that is for members only, which means we would have to search to make sure that members are in good standing to allow on the page, because this would be an internal members page. And then set that up before we officially freeze the page. So we could direct members to go to the new page.
So I'll say this. So the motion was made by Mr. Ham, seconded by Mr. Butts. I will say that anything that happens after this page is either deleted or freeze is up to whatever the communications media, CMC, I forget the official. Ms. Stump?
Communications and social media.
Communications and Social Media Committee. So that would be up to them. Obviously, we have no say or objection to that. I would say that the motion on the table right now is that Mr. Ham motion to delete the page in its entirety. It was seconded by Mr. Butts, and I guess we'll count that as discussion. Mr. Lima.
Just to piggyback off of what you said, I think if the members want to make their own chat, they can, but I don't think the Libertarian Party of California should have any official page, because I think the same problems are just going to persist with members. But they are more than welcome to create their own Facebook pages. I mean, obviously that's up to the communications committee, but the same problems are just going to happen.
So I will say just one thing before I go to Mr. Minoletti and then Ms. Stump. I will say that I think that the page is toxic. It's it's full of vitriol and hate, and it's not productive. At its best, it provides information that can be given across social media platforms on any sort of regular basis. At its worst, it spits libel, technically not speaking, slander, and it just peddles lies and is very destructive to our core principles and beliefs. So I would vote in favor of this motion. I'll just say that, but we're not at a vote yet. I'm just giving my commentary on this. So Mr. Miniletti, then Ms. Stump, and Mr. Butts.
So I agree with the general sentiment that it's not the best look for the party. This discussion page does have a lot of toxicity and everything. I think deleting it at this first meeting right now might not be the best look for this committee, and I think we should consider the optics of it, and also the fact that we might want to get member input. And if we put this item on the agenda for February 27th for that meeting, that would be, I think, giving the membership proper notice. It would be proper notice for this type of motion, since technically this committee couldn't give notice for a motion because this is the first time we're meeting, right? So,
Mr. Brown, is that correct?
I think covering the bases there and soliciting member input, I think would be valuable.
Mr. Miniletti, I'm sorry, Mr. Butts, just a moment. Just to be clear, Mr. Ham's motion is in order, is that correct? I think so. Just wanted to confirm. So Ms. Stump, then Mr. Butts.
The way that I was treating the internal business page would be like an internal newsletter within the company. Unfortunately, others who had the freedom to post took it over as their own platform to spew their own verbal diarrhea, which is unfortunate because I wanted to basically treat it like an internal, the public page would be like a newsletter to customers, and the internal business page was going to be like the internal newsletter within a company. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who aren't members, there's a lot of people who are from out of state, a lot of people who have abused the page itself. So I do think that we should clean the slate, remove it. If not replace it, we can still communicate through the regional pages, and we have to be very careful that the regional pages do not become a spillover for the vitriol that people feel they must force onto the public page, and we should be very vigilant about making sure that our rules on the regional pages are up to date, so when we do delete ad hominem attacks, that we aren't being called censorious unreasonably.
Thank you, Ms. Stump. Mr. Butts and Mr. Lima.
So I believe if you wanted to, you can make an amendment, and if you wanted to, you can table. I wanted to say that if this group does get deleted, there's also the Libertarians in California group that is just the exact same. It's actually been ignored since the party business. I remember the Libertarians in California page group was the one that I went to when I was visiting California, and I first talked to Mark Hinkle in like 2017. So that was probably a lot better for the members to make it into something important and because it's already got a decent algorithm rather than the party business page, which is only 800 people and everybody just wants to yell at each other. The other one is actually kind of more of an activist group.
Thank you, Mr. Butts. Mr. Lima?
If you end up making an amendment, Mrs. Stump, how long would you want to freeze the account for the historical preservation?
It would depend on how long the Historical Preservation Committee would want to take to archive.
So I would recommend this, and Mr. Bryan can correct me if I'm wrong. What we could do is, the motion has been made and seconded, so it was made by Mr. Ham, it was seconded by Mr. Butts, I believe. What we could do is vote on that. It would be voted down. There could be a new motion to simply freeze the account, preventing people. So after that motion is voted down, it would be a motion to freeze the account in its entirety until the Historical Preservation Committee has gotten the information that it desires. at which point it would be deleted. So a new motion can be made after the first one is shot down, just to be clear. Assuming that.
I think that's an order, yeah.
Okay.
This is a policy issue, not a parliamentary issue. Somebody made a good point about, I think you may need to consider the optics of immediately shutting it down. But that's a policy.
But that's a different, you know.
And I have another alternative.
I'm sorry, hold on, Mr. Redner.
I mean, I think we could also make it a substitute.
We could also do that. So it could be a substitute motion to do a freeze instead of a, so if anyone would want to, so let's do this. Mr. Lima, then Mr. Butts, for discussion on this current motion that's on the table.
I was gonna make a substitute.
You could also withdraw.
Even if it's seconded?
Yeah, without objection.
Would Mr. Ham be, would you?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to withdraw the motion.
Okay, Mr. Ham is withdrawing this motion. Mr. Lima.
I would like to
I
make
should the same.
I'm sorry, is there any objection to Mr. Ham withdrawing his motion? Hearing none, the motion is withdrawn. Mr. Lima.
I would like to make a new motion to freeze the account for no more than 60 days to give the Historical Preservation Committee enough time. And after the 60 days is up, delete the fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Lima. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is seconded by Mr. Ham. Is there any further discussion on this issue?
Yeah,
Mr.
I wanted
Butts.
to make one more suggestion. Possibly, I believe you can set the group up to where nobody but the page, like the California page, can post in the group. That way, the page can post like the pictures and about the convention, and hey, here's what's going on, and this is why you can't post in the group right now, and whatnot. Just thoughts.
Mr. Lima?
I want that thing gone. It's so much toxicity. We can start a new one if we want. We can bring that up at another meeting, but I want to stick with my motion that I made.
I'll say one thing, if no one else has anything to say. I will say that I do agree with Mr. Lima. The page is toxic. I'm not really concerned with optics. The thing is a dumpster fire that should be shot and pissed on, and it's vitriolic and terrible. I mean, I want to remind everyone that this is public. People can see it, and they have. We've seen elected officials, I won't mention names, that have been targeted as a result of their participation on this page. And it's vitriolic, it's terrible, it doesn't make us look good. I do think that it's a cancer, and you can't like talk cancer away, you just cut it out and it's done. So I will say that I would be in favor of this motion. Well, it's already been seconded, so. But I'm just saying, if anyone, and again, I want to be very clear as far as transparency is concerned or any other issues, anyone is welcome to post whatever they want on their personal pages. They can create a new page, they can create a new group. That's fine. This is party business, and it has not been party business for quite some time. So anyway, is there any further discussion on this motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to point out that I think the point about the optics was well received, and I definitely can understand that. However, given the negative impact that this has had on party business, morale, and just our overall public image, I think that just justifies the expedience of ending it. And to Mr. Lima's point, we want to be respectful of the Historical Preservation Committee so they can get whatever data they need, but let's freeze it with the intent for 60 days with the intent to delete it. If somebody has a problem, they have their own Facebook page or social media, they can complain about it, but it's not going to be this one.
Mr. Lima?
One more thing to add on to that. If the Historical Preservation Committee finishes before 60 days, as soon as they give us the green light, that 60 days is the cap, no matter what.
Yeah, that's why I just clarified. Okay. Mr. Ofsted?
Oh, I just want to know what did you say no more than 60 days?
No more than 60 days.
Okay, so
that was the initial motion.
That was
I just wanted to make sure we're all.
The freeze would take effect as soon as I can get on the computer and freeze the account?
If I'm understanding Mr. Lima's motion, that would be the case.
Okay, that would be tonight when I get home then.
Correct. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Chair? Start with Mr.
I'm sorry, really quickly. Everyone understands what they're voting on. Is that correct? Does anyone not understand what they're voting on? Excellent, I'm sorry. My apologies, Mr. Secretary, please continue.
Mr. Alfstadt?
Aye.
I will vote yes. Mr. Revere?
Yes.
Ms. Stump?
Yes.
Mr. Butts?
Aye.
Mr. Ham?
Aye.
Mr. Alvarez?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Halsey?
Aye.
Ms. Lepacek?
Yes.
Mr. Lima? Mr. Minnelli?
Nay.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Strachan?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the vote is 13 to 1 to 0 to 0.
The chair will vote in favor of this motion. Aye.
Motion passes 14 to 1.
Excellent. So is there any other new business? For executive committee members?
When will we pick the next convention at our first quarterly meeting?
That's a very good question. I'll say this, I would encourage members, so as someone that has been intimately involved with convention business and how it works, for better or for worse, things need to change very drastically. We can do this in executive session. We don't have to do this in air or dirty laundry in front of the public. I have a lot of things to say and a lot of input given my recent involvement in the convention committee. I am open to everything and anything that will not cost us an absurd amount of money. I've looked what's under the hood and I'm not happy about it. In my opinion, convention has become a circle jerk for our most low status members that don't contribute to anything outside of coming to convention once a year and voting on things and getting time at the mic. And our priority should be ensuring that we are bringing in more money than we're putting out. So that can certainly be something that's on the agenda, and I would encourage it. We do need to figure out sooner rather than later. I will say on the record that I have no preference as to where this next convention, so this would be the presidential convention, just to be clear, will be. I just will be a stickler about how much money is spent, if it's worth it. The ROI is very, very important. I've learned a lot of stuff, and obviously this would be up to the convention committee moving forward, and we can discuss that. We would be doing committee appointments after that, so that's something to just keep in mind. That's not something that's up to strictly this committee here. So I'll go with Mr. Butts and Mr. Lima.
Do we have any prospects for the next convention committee chair?
At this time, not that I'm aware of. Mr. Lima?
Would I have to make an email motion to add that to the agenda, or how would that work?
We have no email motion, so it would just be something that, if I'm not mistaken, per Mr. Starr's, the bylaw that changed where there are no email motions regarding any of this.
That's right, that's correct.
Right, so that would be, if we wanted to do this, we could do this at the next meeting. Otherwise, it would just be something that would be hashed out in person. Mr. Randaletti?
Would it make sense to, if we're looking for a convention committee chair, to solicit that to the membership? I don't think that requires a motion.
It does not, you're correct. So within the next 72 hours, I will email the membership with all the committee availability spots. All committees are open and everyone will apply. They'll submit their resumes, they'll submit their pleas as to why they should be on these committees respectively. And then we will vote on this in the first quarterly, in-person accounting.
How many conventions will be, or how many committees will
All
be?
the conventions, I'm sorry.
How many committees will be elected at the next meeting?
All of them.
All of them? Okay, so we're not splitting it up this time?
No.
Great.
And then I was just going to suggest the same thing with the potential convention bid, that maybe we solicit those in the meantime.
We can always have a special meeting to do that, so that's what would have to happen, and this is not something that should happen over email, so it's one of the things where it just does make sense to hop on the call and do it if that's going to be the case. Mr. Lima?
Can we add that to the Monday meeting then?
We can.
Is that okay with everybody?
How do we do that?
For the
we can just add that to the agenda.
To discuss
Yeah,
it.
that would just be fine.
Get a general idea.
Gives a week. And,
Correct.
Yeah.
We could just do that, that would be a problem.
Not necessarily finalize it.
Here.
Is there any other new business? Excellent.
Mr. Chair, I believe that there was a proposal for a resolution by Mr. Glimmers
Is there any objection to hearing from Mr. Vimmers regarding the resolution? Hearing none, Mr. Vimmers.
Okay, so I propose the following resolution, and I think the Secretary has a copy. So we support the withdrawal of the U.S. from NATO. We oppose taxpayer funds being spent on the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Would anyone like to sponsor that motion? So Mr. Lima has sponsored that motion. Is there a second? Mr. Minnelli? Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote, so I'll just say this. Is there any objection to this resolution? All in favor of this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Excellent. Mr. Vimmers, thank you so much for your resolution.
Thank you.
Understanding that there is no new business, we will...
Sorry, one other thing, Mr. Chair.
Please, Mr. Secretary.
I received a draft resolution from Mr. Byrd as well.
Oh, well, I don't like him, that's fine. I do, he actually gave me a cigar, so... please.
And that reads, it reads, "We, the Libertarian Party of California, condemn the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office for their refusal to seek criminal charges against the Modesto police officer Sam Muncy in the homicide of Paul Chavez Jr. as a dereliction of duty and an affront to justice."
Is there anyone willing to sponsor that motion?
I'd like to sponsor that motion.
Mr. Ham is sponsoring that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Nichols. Is there discussion?
I just lack context on anything with regard to this motion. Does anybody have?
Are we allowed?
The backstory?
Mr. Byrd, would you like to speak to this motion? I'm sorry, really quickly. Is there any objection to Mr. Byrd speaking on this resolution? Hearing none, Mr. Byrd.
Last July, two police officers, an officer Valenzuela and his partner Sam Muncy, answered a disturbance call. Paul Chavez, who was inebriated in his family's front yard, was confronted. He was so inebriated that in the video he can be seen shambling like a zombie. He was holding a trailer hitch to his side. He was not raising it in a menacing manner. He was not threatening them. He did stumble towards Valenzuela. Valenzuela tased him. And then Officer Muncy drew his revolver and put 3 rounds into him. His wife, Brittany, can be heard in the background crying and screaming, "No, no, no." A few months later, it came to light that Chavez had a previous run-in with Muncy. There was a heated exchange. Based on this, the family believes that Muncy intended to murder him. The district attorney has failed to refused to seek criminal charges against Officer Muncy.
First engineer's chair.
This, well, oh, go ahead, what are you doing? Okay. Well, okay. The chair really has to use the facilities. Are there any questions for Mr. Byrd?
Was there, that was on the video, that's the one I saw, I think that you posted that up before, right?
Yes.
And it was the receiver part of the trailer hitch that goes in the 2-inch square ball.
Yeah.
Right? And, yeah, okay. Just making sure we're thinking of the same case.
So are there any, so we'll do this. All in favor of, well, for the executive committee, all in favor of Mr. Byrd's resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the resolution that Mr. Byrd submitted passes. Is there any objection from hearing, before we close, is there any objection from hearing from Ms. Foster? Hearing none, Ms. Foster?
Thank you very much. I'd like to add to what Mr. Byrd was saying, this gets into this huge issue, which is another one we should be addressing, which is called qualified immunity. It doesn't matter whether, what he did, the cop is going to get off. And this is a very hard issue right now. There's legislation, I understand, in Congress to get rid of this doctrine, which is not all that old a doctrine, it's just a few decades, that cops could do anything and kill anybody. Oh, well, that's okay, it was his duty, it was his, that has got to end. And that's all I have to say. I'll let you guys handle how to do it.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. I guess that concludes new business. Assuming there's nothing else. Mr. Lee has a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Mr. Ham said. All right, so we are adjourned. Is there any objection to adjournment?
I was getting a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All right, so we are adjourned at 6:14. Thank you all.